Mythbusters live stream, joined some very special guests, including, go ahead, Ash.
Oh, I'm Mod Ash. I work on the Old School Runescape team as a content developer.
I'm Ian Gower. I've been here ages, so I'm probably going to be expected to remember all the myths from way back, and I'll probably forget the answers.
Hi, I'm Mod Wilson. I'm a senior content developer on RuneScape.
All right, and I'm Mod Archie. I'll be your host. So let's get into this with the first question. Actually, before we even do that, if you're unfamiliar with this series, we'll be leaving you with straw polls, which you can click in the chat. The chat will be paused momentarily. You can just give that a click. You don't need to sign up for anything. Choose your answer if you think it's true, maybe false. And that's that. All right, first question. So in Old School RuneScape, there exists a level 3 player who's managed to acquire the KBD pet and the Chaos Elemental pet. What are your thoughts on this? Is this possible?
Yes, and I know how it was done.
That's about all that can be said, I believe?
Do you really want me to say how it was done?
I think we should probably leave it at that. And we're immediately seeing a bunch of trues in there after about 500 votes. So the chat is actually correct. Mm-hmm. We'll give this one a quick one because there isn't much of an explanation. We don't really have much of an explanation, but it is true, as confirmed by Mod Ash and Mod John C. There is a level 3 player named Iron Bru. He's actually an Iron Man, and he somehow managed to acquire the KBD and the Chaos Elemental pet. Interesting.
Feel free to tweet John C. to ask him about this.
Yeah. How did that happen? All right, moving on to the second myth. Multiple players chopping a tree at one time will make the tree disappear faster versus just one player chopping that tree. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's true in that each of those players swings their axe at the tree, and for each of those players it checks to see, well, have you cut down the tree? So having 10 people going simultaneously means that yes, that tree will disappear a bit quicker than it's just the one.
Every time you get a set of logs from a tree, there is a possibility that the entire tree vanishes. So
the chance is 1 in 8 throughout all trees in Old School RuneScape.
Yeah,
I imagine it's likely similar with RS3. And the chat is quickly changing their answers, as there was a bunch of falses. But that would not pass a poll. So, yeah, guys, that is true. Moving on to the third one. Kind of similar. Spam clicking a tree will give you logs faster than clicking it once and waiting. This is a really good myth, because I'm sure when we all first started, well, except for people that probably made the game, I, for myself, was clicking that tree as fast as I could. Kind of curious.
I think back in Classic when I started playing, you actually had to. But,
well, in Classic you had to click every time you wanted to swing at the tree, so there was a lot more clicking.
And you could actually miss a swing.
Yes.
Told correctly. So we'll see what the chat thinks about this one in a second here. Because there's only a very slight delay. But that is false, says the chat, and they're correct. However, there were a little over 100 people who said that was true, so better luck next time. All right, number 4. One for Ian, I imagine. In RuneScape Classic, drinking a beer could temporarily give you 99 strength.
Now, I don't believe it was the case that drinking a single beer would give you 99 strength. That would obviously be massively overpowered. But I believe it gave you a small boost in the same way that drinking a beer currently does. But I believe there was no cap to the amount of boost you could get at one time. So if you drank enough beer, if you drank sort of like 90 pints of beer, as well as needing the toilet, you would be supremely strong and have a terrible attack stat.
So it's actually true.
But I think that got capped
technically
pretty quick once people spotted they could do that.
Once again, we're seeing those votes change from false to true, but the majority did think false. Kind of, I can imagine why. But
who'd write a bug like that?
So you could just go to higher than 99 then? There was no cap?
No, I think it did limit it to 99.
Oh, okay. I was going to say 1,000 strength.
It was just sort of like, it wouldn't be the case that if I drink a beer, my strength goes up by a rate, and then every beer after that, it just goes, well, you can't go higher than that rate.
Like drinking beer in RuneScape now.
It's sort of like each beer equal. Yeah, it's sort of like each beer equal like two points of strength, or 2 or 3 points of strength.
Can't remember. I never drink the stuff.
That's a good one. I think we should bring this to current RuneScape. All right. Next question. Myth. Sorry. The Dragonfire Shield special attack gives you magic XP.
Ah, nasty one. This.
Yes, I'm quite curious myself.
I went and had a look at the code before coming down here, and it turns out the answer is yes and no.
Ooh, this will be interesting to see what the chat thinks then, because they don't know what to click right now.
Happy 1st of April.
It is April 1st, but these answers are 100% true.
Oh, it just suddenly dropped down to about 50-50.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, that seems about right, really.
Mm.
When you're fighting NPCs, as far as I can tell, it does. When you're fighting players, it doesn't.
Okay. So if using the Dragonfire Shield on an NPC, you might get magic XP. But if you're PKing with it, you might get strength XP.
If you're
Attack?
PKing with it, you just don't.
You don't get XP. Oh, okay. Interesting. I can imagine why they were probably split down the middle for that one. It's a difficult one. All right. The only clock in-game is located above Catherby Bank. Are there other clocks in RuneScape? Have we associated RuneScape? Well, obviously in RS3 now there is an in-game clock, as they have that.
Yeah.
But as far as actual physical,
like an actual clock. Well, there's obviously there's the clock tower. I don't know if you. I can't. It's been ages since I played that one. Do you ever actually fix it, or do you just
You
kind
put
of
4 cogs. I don't recall whether it's got a clock face.
Yeah.
It might in fact just be a humongous broken windmill for all we know. But there is a great big clock face on the outside of the Ardoin eastern bank.
oh, okay.
And there's also little case clocks in your POH if you care to build one, and in various other buildings.
Yeah.
So there are definitely references to time in RuneScape.
You can have a watch to tell your sextant clues with.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And the chat seems to think that is false for the majority. So well done, chat. You're correct. Moving on. Using a herring on any tree will give you a custom message saying this is not the mightiest tree in the forest. That's an odd one.
Yeah, who'd write that?
I don't know. Monty Python obsessed, pun related, people like us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was a Monty Python reference in the postbag from the hedge we were doing in those days, and Oggy asked if I'd put in a message for using a herring on a tree.
And the chat agrees.
Yep.
We're
Which
seeing a lot
leads
of
them to go
trees.
and find which tree is the mightiest one in the forest, and what message you get from that.
Which tree might be that? Or are we not saying it's a top secret? It's the grand tree.
There's one.
I've spoiled it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll say.
All right. This one isn't actually a myth, but more a question. It's a really good question. We're interested to see what you guys think about this. So which NPC is RuneScape's richest, if I can speak? So which NPC would have the highest cash wealth? Players have given these NPCs a lot of money. Which would you guys go for?
Given money. Yeah, I was about to throw out, you could theoretically have had some of the ones from like Rollo the Stout until you bankrupted him, all of this kind of stuff.
Well, we're going to give them 3 main options, but there are obviously plenty of very good candidates here. So the main one is Bob of Bob's Axe Store, who repairs Barrow's armor. Not so used in RS3 as they can do that themselves, but in Old School, for example, there's a lot of...
Yeah, do you guys want to, shall we shuffle around occasionally so we can all be seen?
So there's Bob of Bob's Axe Store, who charges a ridiculous rate to repair your barrows. We've got Max in RS3, who sells you the Max capes for 2.5 mil a piece. However many Max players there are, let's say 15k, that might come out to about 38 bill. There's obviously the Varrock General Store owner. How many people has he ripped off? How much money has he made? These are the questions we need to know. There's a bunch of actually really good candidates. What do you guys think?
Well, I'd have hoped that the wise old man got something pretty good when he robbed that bank, because I know it's many years ago that he did it, but there must have been some people with max cash stacks in there.
There is, looking at our other options here, we have Sandy Botch, the tribesman who guards the Brimhaven dungeon, and charges 875 GP per entry. Got a bit of a fun fact with this one. Story says that the wise old man once ventured to Karamja when he was young, making him the wise young man, where he advised one of the island's tribes to charge for entry to the dungeon, being Sandy Botch, and he mentions that he actually has an employer in Herman's book.
Yeah, Herman's book, I went and read it just before coming down here. I wrote that a long time ago, so I couldn't quite remember what I've written. Says that there's a family on Karamja who remember that a pale-skinned shaman came through their village years ago and said, hey, why don't you stand outside that dungeon and take money off everyone who wants to go in it? And so for generations thereafter, they've been doing so. So that's where Sandy Box family got the job from. They just thought it'd be fun to stand outside and ask for money from people, and it's working for them.
It's a shame we can't track that. A couple other quick options. We have Glue, Glow, the gnome from the Grand Tree Quest, and Monkey Madness.
Glove.
Glove?
Glove.
Glove? Glove.
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 Like,
Yes.
enough.
Oh, okay. Glove. He charges 200k to solve the puzzle for you if you're unable to. And then, of course, there's the unfortunate Artie Silk Trader, who you steal his silk and then sell it back to him. He's going to be the poorest. But it looked like the chat might have thought Bob of Bob's Axe Shop was the richest. So.
Well, they kept saying sawmill.
Oh, the sawmill guy.
Sawmill
That'd be a good
guy,
one.
yeah.
That'd be a good one. Okay, moving on. We have an actual myth. Opening a clue scroll casket in Intrana will make all of the items rewarded disappear instantly.
I like this one.
Not exactly. You will not get like weapons or runes or anything that could be used as a weapon there. So, if you were going to get one, it would be re-rolled to something else, but it wouldn't cause everything to just disappear straight off the bat.
And why is this?
Because it would be a little unfair if you just finished a clue scroll, went on Entrana and got absolutely nothing. I mean,
Right.
If everything disappeared out of it, that would just be a bit unfair.
Okay. So it's technically false, as the items won't disappear, but you will be limited to what you can get from that clue scroll.
That's right.
Interesting.
And it seems the players know it.
Mm-hmm.
They were quite right with that one, with looking like a little over 80% saying false, so well done, chat. Moving on. There was once a study done to show that the most common word spoken by RuneScape players was lol.
Why would anyone do that study?
How much time was spent
Yeah.
looking through how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of words?
Why do we have square watermelons but no flying cars? It's a question for the ages.
In fact, there were well over recorded 600 million of this word per week. And the chat says true. Yeah, you're right. It is true. There are a
Chat
lot
says
of lols in
lol.
RuneScape. This was done by USA Today, actually. And they ended up saying, yeah, RuneScapers really like to lol. I'm going to say that's probably true. That was done back in 2012, but I can imagine it's probably still the same. Moving on.
Did they differentiate between LOL or L0L or lol, or was
Yeah.
it all just counted as
It's
lol?
just LOL. That's that.
And Trollalol should count for double.
Perhaps. Moving on. Skilling in pest control gives you no XP. This would mean trying to chop the trees, maybe fletch them,
Or
fire
maybe
making,
sitting there alking while everyone else plays a minigame.
or alking. You get no XP skilling in pest control.
Certainly not very team spirited, is it?
Should we do that?
What?
The chat is kind of split right now,
Yeah, but the second you said, should we do that, they sort of went,
so it hasn't been done. Slightly leaning towards false. A lot of people really thought that was true, though. It is in fact false. Of course, you do get XP in pest control, though you should be in there, as Ian said, killing the portals and whatnot.
Yeah, we tend to block things like fletching in areas like that.
Yeah. Moving on. You cannot milk an undead cow. I could see why this would be a myth.
That almost sounds like a sort of country saying. Yeah, sort of like early to rise, early to bed, you can't milk an undead cow.
Sounds like there's a lot more of a deeper meaning to this.
Mm.
Well, can you milk an undead cow is the question.
In Old School RuneScape, you would have difficulty because their model physically doesn't have any udders.
Okay.
And there is indeed a message to say so when you try.
So the udders have fallen off on Old School RuneScape.
Yes.
That's
I believe
tragic.
the RS3 cow has been remodelled.
Yeah, the RS3, don't think I think the undead calves have been updated since, but I don't think that they've got udders, and there is not a milking version of them, because there's generally the dairy cows, and there is not an undead dairy cow to my immediate knowledge.
Interesting. Split right down the middle. We have nearly a 50-50. Actually, what's that, 60-ish percent-ish saying true? And you're correct, it is true. You cannot milk an undead cow. Okay, fair enough. Moving on to another one from RuneScape Classic. At one point, the chat filter used to turn offensive words into the word cabbage. We're turning to our RuneScape Classic expert.
Yes, this is one of those ones which comes up a lot. I'll see if I can get it right. Because I think it's not exactly bad words were turned into cabbage. Andrew went through a lot of different variants of the chat filter. And at one time, instead of having a blacklist, which was words that you couldn't say,
Right.
we had a whitelist. So you could only say certain words from the whitelist.
Okay.
Which had problems of its own in terms of it tried to force people's sentences to the nearest closest match it could find, which meant people who couldn't spell had their sentences turned into something completely different, or people who swore at you. I think the example Andrew gave previously was when people were complaining with the chat filter, they kept going on about how ship, with a P, the update was.
With a P.
Yes.
Yes.
But the other issue with the chat filter was if for some reason it crashed, it didn't load or something like that, it would return, it had to return some string, but it couldn't return anything from its dictionary. So as a default, it returned the word cabbage. Now this was never expected to go in the live game. You'd expect to catch it on internal testing, hey, how come everyone's saying cabbage? And so it wouldn't be an issue. But on one occasion, this did actually go live. So every word that every player said was compared to the dictionary. It said the dictionary returned cabbage, and so everything anyone said, good or bad, came out as cabbage.
So it wasn't just bad words.
No, it was just like an entire server of people shouting cabbage at each other.
So that's a tough one
do
to
that
say if
again
it's
as
true or
well.
false then. It could be either or.
You could tell us whether the Gower brothers hate cabbage.
I wasn't a fan of it growing up.
He doesn't seem to be a big fan of it either.
No, indeed. It turns out, there are ways of preparing cabbage which are better than others. Sort of nice braised red cabbage maybe. But just sort of boiled white cabbage, which was what I grew up with, is not appealing.
Brassica is highly disappointed.
All right. Moving on.
I mean, they're great as like pets or deities or whatever, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily eat them.
I don't believe that statement's ever been used before.
Moving on, as this has now turned into a cabbage stream.
Welcome to RuneScape.
Another RuneScape classic question for Ian, I imagine. The first ever player in RuneScape was named Rab.
How long do we give them?
We give him a second.
There we go.
That's
That's pretty quick.
fairly even.
Fairly even. Do we have the
Um,
answer?
I believe the answer is true, assuming you exclude JMods, such as
Right.
me, Paul and Andrew, and I think we also registered a bunch of accounts of variants of our own names to make
Right.
sure people didn't steal them and start impersonating us. But I believe he was the first actual player, yes.
Wow. I can imagine somebody's right now trying to create that name being like, it was me. I've been here this whole time. But the chat is kind of split down the middle for that one. Nearly 50-50, actually. There you go. The first ever player that become a legend.
Yes.
A lot of people were saying Zezima.
I mean, he also contributed various content ideas to the game as well. There were some of the early quests, I think Romeo and Juliet and possibly is it Prince Ali Rescue, I think, were ones he did the storyline for, and even to some degree some of the coding. He certainly got a chance to look at our internal scripting language.
I think Shakespeare might have some claim to creative input on Romeo and Juliet.
Well, yes, indeed, but the sort of variant where they don't actually
Yeah,
die.
but he was like
oh,
the fifth,
sorry, spoilers.
he was like the fifth member, not the first. So yeah.
For anyone who hasn't done the Romeo and Juliet quest.
Okay, so not necessarily the first to Max, but yes, before Zezima there were other players. The first one being Rab. Cool. Next myth. Champion scrolls have a 1 in 10,000 chance of giving you a third age item upon completion.
Should we wait to see what they're going to say before I go with this one? Let's go for it. Let's see what they say.
We base this off of the first vote. There it is.
Yep.
People are saying false, but a little bit of true in there.
Yeah, well, the false people are right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can only get the third age stuff through the clue scrolls, and even then only through the specific hard ones.
And why is this? Why can we not give third age to champion scrolls? I mean, come on.
You might as well just say, well, can't we just have it as a regular drop on just dudes? I mean, we've discussed sort of like other ways of getting third age out. Basically, anything that would adjust it would kind of crash its price.
Yep.
Even just adding new things to the hard table, people will get the price will start fluctuating because there's a few more things on the table. So technically, the chance has gone down by even a fractional percentage. Yeah, which is why we try to avoid doing that as much as possible.
Okay.
Also, given
Fair
that you
answer.
can only do each champion scroll once, saying you might get a reward, well, you didn't, and you can never do it again. That would be
That would be unfortunate.
a bit
little,
like
a little
kicking
cruel.
them.
Okay, moving on to one the chat might get wrong, as they got the last one right. This one's a little bit more difficult. The white desert robes reduce the amount of water needed to be consumed without taking damage in the desert. Commonly known fact. However, the same effect also applies to other white-colored armors in RuneScape, such as maybe the White Knight's armor, as well as the white polar camouflage of the Rupia outfits. Huh?
I think it's a cat if it's white. A
Cat?
rupee is a kind of peach
Okay.
colour.
The hunter stuff. And we're immediately seeing a true.
Well, it's
Actually,
only
quite a few
seven
trues.
votes. And then
And
it's
it's-
switched around to false.
People are changing their votes pretty quickly. To be honest, who's actually tried that? Who's gone into the desert with White Knight's armor
Yeah,
And a
so-
stopwatch.
and then realized, oh, I'm not taking very much damage from water consumption?
Yes.
Do we have the answer for this one?
Wearing my Arctic camouflage in the
Yes.
desert
Yes.
has prevented me from taking water down. No.
And now the trues are switching.
Yeah. It's specifically desert robes. I'm not sure if there is an additional variation of that.
There's a few
Yeah.
other things in the game that do it. In particular, the kit sold by the magic carpet dudes.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff protects you from damage in the same way that desert robes do. And we've recently added the Prospector kit from Motherlode Mine in Old School Runescape, which has a similar effect for those Granite fans.
Okay.
Yeah, but strangely enough, Arctic camo or a giant suit of metal armor, even if you do paint it white, doesn't work.
Right. So fair enough. That one was in fact false. Kind of being a little tricky with the chat there. Apologies. But it is April 1st. We have to have some funny ones in here. Regardless, that's going to really throw you off to wonder now if anything's true or false. Let's go to the next one. Another RuneScape Classic one, saying at one point, only one player could speak with a banker, or any NPC for that matter, at a time. Could you imagine? Only one player could speak to an NPC at a time. I imagine there'd be lineups just to bank your items. Be a little ridiculous, wouldn't it?
Yes,
Correct.
it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And the chat seems to have got that one right.
Which is why
Um,
there's more
yeah.
than one banker in a bank, among
Yes.
other things.
And indeed, on quest release days, it was a real issue because everyone would want to do the new quest. I think Dragon Slayer was particularly bad for it when it
Yeah.
came out. So we started adding clones of the various quest NPCs on launch days to try to mitigate the effect. Although one thing which was very gratifying to see was that the community was quite good in terms of organising themselves into queues and
Yeah.
taking it in turns to go and speak to the quest NPCs.
So they actually got in line to
Mhm.
talk to an
Yes.
NPC.
Yeah. I think we generally logged on to see how an update was going at launch and to make sure everything went smoothly. But yeah, it was generally taken in fairly good humour. It was just one of the sort of quirks of the game. This was because when you spoke to an NPC, all the chat appeared above their head. We didn't have the chat box down at the bottom.
Okay.
So if an NPC was trying to talk to 20 people at once and all of those sentences appeared above its head, you wouldn't see anything else on the screen, obviously.
Interesting. This is probably a good thing this was before the days of internet trolling, otherwise there'd be one player talking to that NPC all day long just because he wanted to.
I'm
Yep.
sure it happened.
I'm not saying it didn't happen, but there was certainly a lot of people were
Right.
I
very
remember trying
sensibly
to do
behaved about it.
I remember trying to do the tourist trap quest when that came out on its launch day, because only one person could talk to the captain outside the mining camp at a time, and they had to fight him. And with only a few cacti in the vicinity, it was quite nasty being out there on launch day.
Okay. A little similar to the last one, again for Classic. So in RuneScape Classic, there was once a bug that allowed players to attack and kill bankers to loot their cash and items. All right. You might have thought the other one was probably not true, but it was true. What are your thoughts on this one? You can kill bankers and collect their cash and items. See what the chat thinks. Mostly thinking false.
Yeah.
A little bit of trues in there. I think they're hoping.
I can't remember such an event taking place. It's not unfeasible. I can't remember such an event. One thing I can say for definite is if it had happened, you would have only gotten items off probably some random drop table. You definitely would never have got items from another player's bank account, for
Right.
example, because that's saved on an individual player's save game.
Right.
It's certainly not stable on the NPC, otherwise you'd talk to different bankers and find you got different stuff in your bank account.
So bankers aren't actually bankers, they're more just people that...
The thing you click on to make the menu open.
Right, and then your items are stored in some personalized, individual...
Like an inventory, except where the menu only opens when you click on a banker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
From a
What do you learn?
technical standpoint.
Yeah.
Cool. Next myth. The nature amulet gives negative bonuses when combined with the secateurs.
No.
Really?
Why would it do that?
That was a quick false. But a few people were kind of thinking, this must be true because I will both of them at the same time, and I swear I'm not kidding. As much XP. So it is indeed false. As we see the chat, not
I
too
see
many
few
people saying false.
Few people believe it.
Yeah. Somewhat surprising with that one. And there come the falses. All right. Moving on. When wood cutting, switching your attack style to chop will increase how many logs you receive per hour.
I mean, I love the logic of this question because if you think about it, if you try to stab a tree,
Yeah.
you're not going to get very far.
Or if you try to block a tree, like it's attacking you. Slash might do well, but chop, you would think, would give you the most ideal XP and probably logs per hour.
Assuming you actually equipped the hatchet and weren't wielding a whip while woodcutting.
Right.
Yeah.
Ripping a tree is also not going to work.
This would make sense.
I think they've worked this one out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there'll probably be some new players saying true. You'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. No, this is RuneScape. That does not make sense. Moving on.
Yeah.
Black party hats were dropped alongside the other party hats on their release day, just at a very significantly rarer drop rate, and eventually went extinct. Were black party hats ever originally in RuneScape? Prior to us, of course, releasing them not too long ago. This is one for the times. We'll see what the chat thinks. And
Few people believe it.
you
But-
really hope you're going to see a lot of truths for these.
But no, it is indeed false. And just to make sure, again, that I wasn't misremembering, I went into RS Classic and checked the object config, and there's definitely no black party hat in the object configs for RuneScape Classic. Sorry.
So maybe if you just had your screen brightness down really low and someone had a red party hat, that might be where this came from, but no black party hats, unfortunately. All right, moving on. Probably want a bit more for old school, I imagine. Using a bucket on a furnace with 10 gold bars will create an untradeable golden bucket.
I like this myth.
I'm guessing it popped up a lot more since Minecraft came out and that kind of logic.
I think John C. might have actually had a hand in this one with creating the golden bucket, the very rare golden bucket.
Delay a tiny bit longer.
I think we might have given you the wrong question in the chat there.
It's something in Spanish, I think.
The question might have been
April
in the wrong
Fools,
language.
deliberately, that's why you're seeing the wrong question.
Yes.
Yeah. Played for and got.
So can we get a bit of lore on this, a little history on this golden bucket? Why is this golden bucket such a big deal?
Because we started talking about golden buckets in the last year or so, and we haven't stopped yet.
They just came up in conversation one day? Pretty much?
Something of the sort.
Something of the sort? Again, a lot of falses. You guys aren't falling for anything right now. You guys are correct, in fact. Oh,
Sorry.
very polite of Mod Ash to mute his mic right there.
It's never enough.
You'll still hear it through mine, that's okay. Yeah, that one is false. There are no golden buckets, sorry guys.
Mind you, if John C's watching this, there might be a golden bucket by the time we get back upstairs again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on. This is a good one, a little tricky to explain. Your exact hit points does not change how high your Darox will hit. So as long as you're under 10% health, you'll still hit the same as if you were on 1 health. A little tricky.
Yeah, nice one, this.
So theoretically, assuming to this myth, if you're on 9 HP, or life points or constitution, whatever you want to call it, you would hit the same as if you were on 1 health.
Yeah, see what they make of this.
Ooh, it's 50-50 right down the middle.
This is
that
a
one.
good one.
That's a really good answer, really. because in Old School Runescape with hit points, it is false. Each hit point makes a difference.
Okay.
Once the Constitution update came in, it became true because the granularity worked out that way.
Okay. So in RS3, you just have to be below the 10% margin.
Yeah.
And in Old School, every hit point counts.
So, assuming all players know exactly what they're talking about, we've got a breakdown of who's watching this stream from each game. Assuming all players know what they're talking about.
So you might not be right, you might not be wrong. But that was a good effort. Moving on. When thieving, the longer you steal from the same NPC decreases your chances of getting caught. So you think he kind of gets used to you stealing from him, and he's like, this guy's been stealing from me for 2 hours now. I'm going to let him get more.
Yeah, it's sort of like I'm down to rags of my clothing, and he's just sort of like...
Let him have it all, I don't
Yeah.
care anymore.
Fool me once, shame on you.
Fool me twice, you can have it all.
pickpocket it at me for half an hour.
They're pretty quick to say false for that one.
The players are correct on this one.
Yep.
Yeah, it is indeed false. Though it would kind of make sense. RuneScape logic.
Doesn't make sense in real logic.
Not quite. Moving on. Edgeville used to be named Ghost Town. So perhaps cities had prior names before Varrock, before Edgeville, before Falador. Edgeville, for example, used to be called Ghost Town. Thoughts on this? Can we give any thoughts without completely giving away the answer? Is that
I don't know. It's sort of like
I mean,
we're all waiting
no.
to see what the players say now.
I mean, I'm assuming Ghost Town would never have been its official name, if that was indeed its name. You can't imagine someone building their town and going, I'm going to name this town Ghost Town.
Yeah.
But then again, sort of like in fantasy, sort of like who calls the place of like the Tower of Murder and stuff like that, where the heroes have to go and do it. So like, yeah, so theoretically someone could have built it as Ghost Town, but you'd think that Phasmatis would probably have been called that first.
Probably.
Yeah.
Do we have the answer for this one?
We've got a 50-50 from the players, so...
Well, I believe it is true.
Yes, certainly, at least on the map it was marked down as Ghost Town. There wasn't anyone there to actually talk to about it. It was full of ghosts, and not the sort of helpful kind as you find around Phasmatis. But yes, it later got rebuilt and named Edgeville at that time.
Or was this because it was near the edge of the wilderness?
Yes,
Okay.
imaginative.
That took me a really long time to come to that.
Whereas these days it's kind of slapped between the big commerce centre and a monastery.
Yeah. I would be terrible at naming cities. Varrock would be like Fountain City. Falador would be Statue City.
The last time I named an area, we called it Zolandra.
It's not that bad at all. So were there other cities that had different names, or is it just Edgeville that was renamed, out of curiosity?
Edgeville's the only one I can think of being renamed.
Okay. I can see some really old school players being like, I'm going to start calling it Ghost Town now, just because that's the cool thing to do. Moving on. While boxing another player in the duel arena, using the defensive attack style will decrease damage taken, but also reduce your damage output.
Yeah, let's see what the players make of this.
So
completely
theoretically-
50-50 right now, two
Between
votes.
those two people.
So theoretically, attack style punching would make you hit more, but maybe take more damage. Maybe. Kick would make you hit higher, but maybe hit less. And block would make you take less, but deal less. Does that make sense?
Well, now we've got some replies from the players. That is basically what the combat stances are for.
Yeah.
So that is actually how it works.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what the difference is
unarmed.
between the three combat stances.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, the animation changes, but the important bit from the point of view of your numbers is that if you're in an accurate mode, it treats your attack stat as a little bit higher.
Right.
If you're in an aggressive mode, it treats your strength stat as a little bit higher. And if you're in a defensive mode, it treats your defense stat as a little bit higher. So you choose which one you want.
So blocking actually does something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good myth. And the chat agreed. They got that one pretty well. About 70% or so agreed. Moving on.
Of course, I'm not quite sure how this applies to RS3.
Well, when you switch back to legacy mode and can do that,
Yeah.
yeah. If you're using, there's like the various punch-related ability. Well, there's the I can't remember the exact name of it. The ability which just has a big sort of punchy fist as its thing, and it will just do exactly what that ability does, assuming that you've got assuming it works unarmed.
Okay. There you go. Moving on. In RuneScape Classic, you only received experience for killing a monster, not for every single individual hit. That'd be kind of upsetting if you didn't get the kill. Let's see what the
So the
chat
players
says
seem
on
to
this one.
believe this one.
So far, a lot of trues. Why might
Yep.
this be true?
I,
Just the way you decided it to be?
I don't know the logic behind why it was programmed that way initially, but it is certainly true. Although the XP didn't go entirely to one person, it could be divided between up to 4 people who'd
Okay.
damaged that NPC in proportion to the amount of damage they'd actually done. One interesting side effect of this was you could fight an NPC for a while, and then you might have to retreat or wander off and go somewhere else. You'd be somewhere else in the world. And then someone else would come along and kill that NPC, and then you'd get your chunk of XP.
Okay.
Whilst you were somewhere else entirely.
That would be an interesting change to the game, how it is now. I didn't see what the chat thought of that one.
With Slayer, you could probably achieve it. Because with Slayer, the person who does the most damage gets half the Slayer XP,
Right.
wherever they may now be.
Okay. So it does still kind of stay true to the game with Slayer. But the chat is mostly saying true. A little bit of false is in there. But you are correct to say true. Moving on. Worlds actually fill at 1980 players, not 2,000. Have you ever seen a world go to like 1999? I personally haven't.
I think I might have around about the time that we did play around houses. So I think that there was at least one or two that I know that we had a lot of people turn up on those days.
But from a point of view, it would make a bit of sense to take away the link to that world when it's got over 1980. Not because it's full, but because if there's one space left and 50 people are all clicking on it to try and get in, that's a lot of people getting disappointed over and over again. Whereas if you just take the link away, hopefully the 49 people go find another world and try and get into that instead.
Okay.
So you might program your world hopper menu to take away the link to the world when the world is nearly full, even though the world could have handled 2,000 properly.
So technically, they do still go to 2,000,
Yes.
but you will not find a world with over 1980 players? Is that correct?
No, you
Yeah.
can find a world with
Okay.
2,000 players, but
Before it gets
doesn't
to the
happen
full
that much.
sign.
The server certainly, the server code certainly supports 2,000 connections
Right.
at a time. If it doesn't reach that for other reasons, depending on people not hanging around to connect or whatever.
So it is technically false.
Yeah.
Then the worlds, they do fill at 2,000, right?
I'm
Not
seeing in the
1980.
chat their mic is muted. Did you put it back on correctly?
Oh, it did.
They're trolling.
They're
They're
trolling.
trolling.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, no
I say
worries.
about Ronan all the
Amateur.
time, in fact, because Ronan doesn't talk very often in our streams, so they're always
Yeah.
telling us to unmute him.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Oh, you players.
Moving on to the rarest items in the game. This is a good one. The rarest item in Old School is the warship. And it's said that the rarest item in RS3 is the gold shield key. Yep. Thoughts on that? What else might be the rarest items for both versions of the game?
Well, it was only last night that Old School Runescape saw a Third Age cloak turn up
Hmm.
for the first time to a player whose name, sadly, I cannot say on stream.
Okay. So we do have one Third Age cloak in Old School, making it obviously the rarest item now.
And
It
of
seems
course,
to be traded twice as well.
and of course, from our side, we've got the new barrel backpack, which is about as rare as the Third Age item, and obviously a lot newer than the Third Age item, so there's going to be significantly less of them. Technically, there's the dies as well. I think the top level of those is exceedingly rare, and people have used them up, so there's less of them.
Okay. You would think party hats would maybe be in there for RS3, being discontinued. and
Yeah,
whatnot.
at this point, but people
Mm.
tend to hang on to those.
Of course.
And the party hats wouldn't be as well, I imagine, as things like Discs of Returning or Christmas
Mm.
crackers.
Yes.
Right.
In the case of the Cabbage warship, for Old School at least, we gave that out to celebrate our birthday, which was not that long ago, so I imagine there's quite a few knocking about at this point.
Right. So there you go. So technically, that would be false. Moving on. The glory teleport locations form a triangle. If you don't know, we don't have a map right now, but if you ever look at your RuneScape map and where the glory teleports are, they form a triangle, and then there's the fourth teleport being in the middle. Some people say this middle area is an eye, and it's in fact the Illuminati. Jagex is Illuminati. myth?
Fnord.
True or false?
Initial results say 100% with Illuminati.
Yeah.
It's a good thing it's April Fools. We can get away with this.
No, we had a similar thing when the initial version of the graphics for the ranged and magic attack prayers went out, because obviously there was an eye, because it makes sense for your ranged accuracy ones to go up to be eye related, and the magic ones to be a sort of a mystical pyramid.
Yeah.
So everyone was like, Illuminati. So I actually made the news post for that day because I couldn't think of what to write. I took the word Illuminati and then used that as the capitalizations for all of the sentences that I wrote, and then edited it a bit based on that. So yeah.
So I think we're just going to go with the chat and just say, yeah, you know what, it's totally true. It's
Well,
exactly
if we denied it, would they believe us?
Yeah. Basically, I think we're going to go with the chat and say all of you should remain in your homes. A crack swad of black helicopters will appear shortly. We have never been part of the Illuminati. You saw nothing.
That was like 90% saying true.
Yep.
I think
That's
Marguerite said
90%
he
of them
wished he
wrong.
were in the Illuminati at one point.
Yeah. They're catching on. Either that or they seriously, genuinely think that. In which case, yeah. Moving on. Okay, player moderators have the ability to mute Jagex moderators. It's an interesting one. Would that mean, yeah. Okay, I could see it. It could be true. Could very well be true.
Yeah, they run in here. They turn off our mics all the time.
Yeah.
Now they're all going to go in game and try it next time they meet us.
Mod running gets muted the most on stream. And they're mostly leaning towards false. So we have our first, I think, myth now, maybe the second one or so, where players seem to think it's false. It is in fact true.
Yeah.
Player moderators can mute Jagex mods. Don't want to know what happens if that does happen. But
Some player mod maybe gets told off by the support team.
And
It
the
is
J mod
possible.
goes onto the back end and mutes themselves.
it is possible.
And then we unleash the Illuminati kill squads.
I can't actually do that.
No?
I checked.
Oh.
Moving on. Shooting the cannon in Barbarian Assault causes your team to lose points.
I think you know Barbarian Assault best lately.
Yes. And should we wait? Well, let's wait to see what the players say.
Oh, that's all right. I'm sure they're already voting.
Yep, all right. Well, no, it doesn't lose you points at all, and you are in fact gaining points by shooting the cannon at the right people and helping out your team.
Interesting.
Although I believe if you stun the creatures enough, it can be really, really annoying for the rest of your team because nobody else can interact with them when you're doing that.
Yeah.
This was a good one. If you ever do Barbarian Assault and you shoot the cannon, you quite often have somebody approaching you saying, "Stop shooting the cannon, noob, you're losing his points."
No, that's what that sort of like role is entirely about. You go out, you grab the eggs, you load them into the cannon, fire them away, and that's what you're doing. You're doing it right.
And the chat agrees with roughly 75% saying false. They're in fact correct. 25%. Better luck next time. Moving on. This is a good one. Having a higher agility level will improve your chance of passing obstacles in quests like Morning's End Part 2 and the Underground Pass. So these quests might have obstacles that are significantly difficult to pass. Any player who's done these quests will know. Having, say, level 70 or even 99 agility, does that make a difference?
It depends on the obstacle, because I think there are a few that are basically written, if you have a level below this, you automatically fail. I think the ones that you've specifically mentioned are based on the same sort of like checks that you do for passing a bog standard agility obstacle. So if you're below a certain level, you can't do it. If you're above a certain level, each of those levels contributes towards the chance of success.
Okay.
Yes, the developer who wrote those two quests was very keen on there being an advantage to having a level beyond what was required for the quest. In particular, if you try to do Morning's End Part 2 with the bare minimum agility requirement, you're going to have a hellish time going through the Temple of Light. But if you go through it with your level in the mid-70s or above, you'll probably be all right. And if you're like level 99, you'll probably think it's a bit of a breeze.
Did you say for the climbing one, it was a 1 in 8 chance at level 70?
I never looked at the probabilities for that, but there's a set of handholds where you have to swing on each of them to get along a wall, and you've got a chance of falling off at each point.
Right.
So the chance of you falling off on one of them on the way across is really quite high.
Right.
And
multiply
very
each time.
high if you've got a low agility level.
Yeah, same with the Olaf's Quest little boardwalk thing when that
Yeah.
first went out. Yeah.
So
I was away
agility.
that week, but I believe Jagex nerfed it.
Oh, we nerfed it way hard. The maths and the rest of it made perfect sense up until you had people who were only slightly above the level requirement running across it, and each space they had a chance of falling off. So, yeah.
Yes, I was very glad I was in North Wales while that was all going on.
So agility level really does play a big part in some of these quests that have
Yep.
agility requirements.
I mean, it's not
It's
just
true.
agility, sort of like some other skill-based ones. If there's a tree you've got to chop down, it will probably be based on the same sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. And combat, obviously.
Right. Okay, interesting. Next question. RuneScape's not particularly known for having toilets, beds, things as people need. There is, in fact, however, one toilet in the game, and it's located in an abandoned building in West Ardoyne. Is this true? Is this false? Are there any
What
other
does the
toilets in
players say?
RuneScape?
Oh,
Are there
I
any
seem to
toilets in
think there
RuneScape?
is one.
An abandoned toilet in a very sketchy part of Ardy.
Well, there's enough sewers underneath Ardoyne, so you'd expect there to be at least one toilet in the game somewhere.
Unless people are using and hiding chamber pots. There are
the
lots of
players think
pots
there is
in-
indeed
yeah.
one toilet in West Ardoyne.
I've sold them on the truth. It is
Yeah.
in fact false. There is not a toilet in West Ardy.
Yeah.
So if you follow that original suggestion of drinking enough beer to get to 99 strength, you're going to have a very bad time.
Yeah.
I'd imagine you just get poisoned at that point after 100 beers or so.
I think the ground is going to have a very bad time and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. But,
Yeah, the only proper toilet is the iron bowel that Rollo the Stout is confined to, and you never see it.
Okay. I think, did you say there was a reference to a toilet from something with Lunar?
Yes, in the Lunar Contact NPC spell, if you go for the random dialogue option, then one of the random people you might find yourself talking to is a man who says, leave me alone, I'm on the toilet. And you query this, and he says, yes, I'm on the toilet, now leave me alone. So you do. But somewhere, he's found the toilet. Now, personally, I think that for Old School Runescape, it's going to turn out to be on Zaya.
Okay. So Zaya might have toilets.
Or one toilet with one man in there getting very bothered by voices in his head.
Before this gets a little out of hand, let's move on to the next question. Okay. Examining a stick trap before passing it will improve your chance of passing it successfully. So perhaps the worst agility obstacle ever is the stick trap.
That's another one where a higher agility level than the minimum required is a good thing to have.
Okay. Would examining it, I mean, you go, hey, look, I'm looking at it. I can clearly see that it's here. Maybe I won't step on the spikes. Oh, I stepped on the spikes. Does it do anything?
And the players say false. The players are correct.
Yeah.
In Old School RuneScape, there is no code run whatsoever other than giving you a message when you examine things, so we wouldn't be able to make that happen whether we wanted to or not. RS3 can, but has chosen not to do so.
Yeah.
I believe it's considered bad form from the point of view that for years and years and years, Examine hasn't had any effect on gameplay. And so to start hiding behaviour there now would be completely out of place.
Yeah, it would be behind an op like search or observe or something like that. It would never be just flat out examine.
And just sometimes you get a piece of content where there's a tree stump with look at tree stump, search tree stump, examine tree stump. And if you're not familiar with RuneScape and its strange conventions, that might seem very strange to you.
Okay. So that one is indeed false. You will still probably fail at the stick trap. Moving on. Having your weight below 0 regenerates your run energy at a faster rate. This is a good one. There are a lot of people who do their best to stay below 0, often at negative weights. No, you do not float into the air.
Oh, 17 people are split on it.
Split right down the middle so far. Again, having your weight below 0 regenerates your run energy at a faster rate. We can confirm or
Obviously,
bust this
it
one.
doesn't mean your overall weight is actually below 0. It's the weight of items you're carrying.
Right.
So, fortunately, no, you won't go floating off like a helium balloon.
Yeah.
Not to be seen again.
And it is indeed false.
Yeah.
So very slightly right with the Twitch
Indeed.
chat there. A lot of people thought that was true.
Looking at the code for this, I believe the way it works is once you get to 64 kilograms carried, your run energy will deplete twice as fast as if you have 0 kilograms carried.
Okay.
And it's a scale from 0 to 64 kilograms, and I believe outside of that range there is no further effect, positive or negative.
So does that mean theoretically 0 to 63 is the exact same effect? Or
No,
you're
0 to
saying- okay.
64 is a scale gradually getting worse and worse. Once
Gotcha.
you hit 64 kilograms, you'll be losing run energy twice as fast. But 65 kilograms, 100 kilograms, whatever, won't get any worse than that.
Okay.
We did talk at one point about changing it for Old School Runescape, but we didn't.
Interesting. So indeed, having your weight below 0 will not regenerate your run energy at a faster rate. Moving on. It's not possible to receive 2 Third Age items in a single clue scroll reward. So you cannot get 2 Third Age items in a single clue.
Have you ever seen a screenshot of somebody showing they've done it?
I haven't, but
The players are saying false.
the
Have you
odds
ever
of
seen
that
a-
would be...
Third age item and a toilet in the same screenshot.
Huh?
Yeah, think about it.
If you open
Maybe.
that casket and you find a toilet, you're not going to be very pleased.
Well, it would
They
be
sell it on the
incredibly
Grand
rare.
Exchange.
I mean, wow, how much money would you be able to get for it on the Grand Exchange? Yep, the players have it right. It's false. You could, in theory, if you are the luckiest person alive, you could open up a hard clue scroll casket, and everything could be Third Age.
Everything.
Everything
You
could be
could have
Third Age.
4.
It would just be, it could be an entire set. You could just open it up and it would be an entire set. But the odds of this happening are staggeringly huge.
I wish we had a number. I really wish we had a number. Let's just say 1 in 4 billion. Trillion.
Well, if
Yeah,
we
well,
leave all of you to keep playing our game, please,
Yeah,
then maybe one of you will manage it eventually.
One of
Yeah.
you can tell us.
Send us a screenshot when you do.
yeah, and we'll let you join the Illuminati, like us.
All
That's
right.
how you
moving
get
on.
in.
Again with the odds. It's not possible to receive the same Slayer task twice in a row. This is a good one. Could go either way. Could be false, could be true. See what the chat thinks.
Third Age toilet confirmed, says the chat. Ew.
So again, it's not possible to receive the same Slayer task twice in a row. I'm not saying you cancel one, just, you finish your task,
Yeah.
you go back, you get the same task. Is it possible?
They say mostly false. For Old School RuneScape, they are correct. It is not possible to... or is that true? Well, you can't in Old School RuneScape. You can't get the same Slayer task twice in a row.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they would be true to say that then.
Yes.
So people that are saying true, which
Having
is
trouble with the logic there, which is a problem because I'm a programmer.
Nice.
the minority. Is
Double
saying
negatives.
true. Does the answer change for RS3 then?
I believe no. I believe that it's specifically been set up so that you don't get it twice in a row, just because people were kind
Right.
of complaining about that.
Ah, that's a shame.
Yeah.
I see that being very frustrating. Or nice at the same
That's a
time. Nice little transition there.
Yeah. We're going to do a Star Wars right for the next one.
Moving on. Your farming level does not affect how many herbs you pull out of your allotment.
Oh, I get asked about this so often.
I know you guys love
In
your farming.
RuneScape or in real life?
Yeah.
In Twitter.
Or in Twitter?
Twitter.
That's a mixture of both.
Nice.
Your farming level does not affect how many herbs you pull out of your allotment. Can we debunk this one or clarify? Is it true? Is it false?
Ooh. And the players are very split. But mostly they believe that farming level has no effect. In fact, farming level does make you more likely to get a big harvest.
You were so
Mhm.
wrong.
The way it works is that your allotment, your herb patch, your hops patch, the things with random yields, they start off with 3 lives. You pick an item and you roll the dice. If you lose a life. When you've lost all 3 lives, the patch becomes empty. So you keep rolling over and over again, picking items until you've lost 3 times, at which point the patch becomes empty. When you roll, you are more likely to succeed if you have a high farming level. So with a high farming level, you've got a high chance of rolling more times before it becomes empty. So you start off with 3 lives by default. If the patch was composted, you start off with 4 lives. If it was super composted, you start off with 5 lives. And the code base supports us adding a state of uber compost one day and giving you 6 lives to start with. I'd like to do that from the Lunar Spell if we ever did it, but I digress. So yeah, your farming level does help, and in theory you could get infinite crops from those patches if you just keep rolling successfully over and over again However, the chances are very, very low of that happening.
So with the chat majority saying true, it was in fact false, and your farming level does have an effect on how many herbs you pull out of your allotment. Interesting, that's a good one. Another good one, this will be a very mixed answer I imagine. Equipping the rabbit foot necklace improves your chance of receiving bird's nests when wood cutting. A lot of people think the rabbit foot necklace is useless. Some people say it isn't. Kind of like the Ring of Wealth. Does it actually do anything? Who was behind the rabbit foot necklace?
Wasn't that
I mean, it was part of a hunter skill, yes,
Yeah.
although in terms of a reward for it, I think I discussed that with Mod Mark. You know, I was mostly focusing on the sort of trapping behaviour for the rabbit and the ferret and all of that. And it's like, what's this rabbit foot actually going to do? And yeah, that was the suggestion I got, so I implemented it, and it's turned out to be rather undesirable.
Well, in Old School Runescape, it's especially undesirable because what it does is make it more like the nest contains an egg rather than making you more likely to get the nest in the first place. And in Old School Runescape, where the eggs have no purpose, that means you're more likely to get a useless nest rather than one with some handy seeds in that you could sell or use.
So it is in fact false, as the chat says true. You are again wrong. It does not have a higher chance of you receiving bird's nests. It does with eggs, which are useless, but not just bird's nests in general.
Of course, one day we might make the eggs do something.
Well, there's the bird eggs that you can
Yeah.
hatch.
Yeah, we can't.
Oh yeah,
We can't be old school. So it's still dead content in Old School.
Although
the
we are
answer is the
concepting
same.
ideas for god omelets.
God
Nice.
omelets. Okay. Moving on. You have to wield the magic secateurs to take advantage of their bonus. You can't just have them in your inventory. We know of a few items which differ between wielding them and just having them in your inventory. Even just having them in your bank, you might get their bonus. But the magic secateurs, you have to wield them to get their bonus.
And the players say true. The players are correct, you do.
I can imagine there are a couple farmers out there very upset right now. Moving on. There's a hat stand in the general store in Edgeville that can be used to hold your assorted hats. You can actually have a hat storage facility, being a stick, that will hold your hats in Edgeville.
So let's see what the players have to say about that.
Is this in both games? This hat stand?
Well, in Old School, I believe it's a hat stand in Ghost Town. But
Right.
yeah,
Right. So this applies to both games then?
yeah.
And the players say false.
Yep.
The players are correct. There is no hat stand that can hold hats. The only thing that can go in Edgeville to hold a hat is your neck when you're in Edgeville.
Okay. Or your head.
Well,
Yes, I mean, yeah. I know that it was sort of like, well, in our version of the game, it gets burned down, spoiler alerts. But, sort of like people aren't wandering around the place decapitated, trying to keep their blood in by screwing a straw boater over their stump.
No, that would be a very strange fantasy indeed.
Yeah,
It's got
that's
that
why
one
it's a
quick.
That's why it's a ghost town.
But at least in Old School, there is actually a hat stand. But if you tried to, say, put your fedora on it, it would just fall off onto the ground where you'd have to pick it back up.
I have a feeling that was written for the hat stand in Vrock and it just applied itself to all the hat stands everywhere.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. Before level 126 combat, and obviously 138, the original max combat was 123. So there was a max combat before 126, and it was in fact 123. Now that doesn't mean there wasn't a combat skill, because it's always been attack, strength, defense, prayer, hit points, etc. Could this be possible?
The players say true a bit.
Slightly true. Do we have the answer to this one?
Not
It-
sure
it-
if true.
It was true. In RuneScape Classic, the maximum level was 123. The calculation got changed going into RuneScape 2 because we obviously tried to balance the various combat types more substantially. In RuneScape Classic, it was very much the case that you predominantly fought with melee combat, and then you sort of cast spells on top of that in between your melee hits. It was
Okay.
there was a sort of supplementary form of attack, whereas in RuneScape 2, you typically choose either melee or ranged or magic, so it picks the sort of highest one of those 3 stats to determine your combat level, as opposed to sort of combining them. So there is a different calculation, and in RuneScape Classic, the maximum level was indeed 123.
Interesting. So that is in fact true. I believe the chat was mostly agreeing there.
Yeah, they're chanting it like some sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And before we forget, because I will forget by the end of this, if you like the shirt that Ian's wearing right now, it's actually going to be in the merch store. I believe tomorrow that opens. Just one of the many products we'll be selling, so pretty cool. I'm going to get myself one.
Yeah, free stuff for me.
I might get some more one for tomorrow's stream. So again, with the 123 combat, Zezima was in fact the first player to achieve 123 combat. True? False? Was Zezima the first ever player to max out at 123 combat?
I can't remember. I never followed celebrity gossip as such.
Didn't prescribe to the magazines, I see.
The players
on the
lean
fence
towards
with this one.
false.
Yeah, the celebrity gossip stuff like, did Zezima achieve his level by drinking 99 beers to get to level 99 strength?
Can he get to 255 strength if he drinks more beer?
Yeah.
In game.
So the player's leaning towards false. Can we confirm this?
I can't.
I mean, I did a search on the internet. I can't remember from the actual time. The internet seems to indicate that he wasn't the first person to reach 123.
The internet tells us it was actually a player named Gear Shifter. And then before him, the number 1 player was TKS with a total level of just 1100, actually. And that was the next myth. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the one after that, which, if we're still count numbers, we're on 46 now. And I've just realized we're over time limit, aren't we?
Are we?
Time's been flying.
Oh, wow.
I guess we'll just fit in one last myth here then.
Okay.
How many more we got?
Quite a few, actually. Those will probably be saved for the next stream if we do a Mythbusters Part 3. But moving into the last myth here.
Will we do a Mythbusters Part 3? Vote now.
You can't vote for that. Your attack level will not improve your rate of XP per hour. It's simply a skill used to grant you access to hold more powerful weapons. I think there's a big debate, a big argument, a timeless argument even, that higher strength is obviously better than higher attack. You'd much rather have 99 attack and say 80 strength versus 80 attack and 99 strength, or vice versa.
Vice versa, I think.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So is attack really useful? That's the question.
The players say false. They believe that attack is useful.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
No.
No,
They're right.
Right.
Attack affects your chance to hit, whereas strength affects your maximum hit.
Right.
So you will get more XP per hour if you're hitting less zeros, obviously.
So when you go to attack a monster, each time you swing your weapon, it rolls against your attack versus the monster's defense to see whether you do any damage at all. And if it decides that you are allowed to do some damage, it rolls against your strength to see how much damage, which can be 0, but generally isn't.
Interesting. There you have it. So we're going to save the rest of these for a part 3, should that happen. If you would like to see that happen, please let us know via Twitter, wherever you want to. Please, by all means, thank all the J-Mods. You guys want to plug your Twitters in here?
At Jagex Ash.
At Jagex_Ian.
I don't have a Twitter.
Oh, no.
Well, I do, but it's a secret Illuminati one.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But regardless, thank you for your time,
No problem.
guys. Yeah, we've had some really good myths in here. We really stumped them a couple times. I think it was a solid stream. So
Thanks
thank you
for watching.
Yep.
And we'll thank with the Q&A tomorrow. That's what I was going to say. We also still have the Q&A tomorrow at 5 p.m., which is now BST, not GMT. That's going to be tough to remember.
Yeah, we might want to keep tweeting about that kind of
Right.
difference.
Yeah.
Britain's
Aside from
clocks
that,
have just shifted. Yeah.
That's about it. See you next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.